Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh. Everyone, I pray you are having an amazing, 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 blessed day today. Ameen. Welcome to today's episode of The Strange Ink Show. And today we are going to be talking about a personal passion of my own about writing characters. So if you are writing a memoir, or if you are writing a novel, or if you're writing a children's book, right? If you're writing anything, we need to know about characters, right? So I have an amazing, amazing tip, which inshallah is going to help you write the best characters you have ever written. MashaAllah, inshallah. Okay. So with no further ado, let's begin. Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim. So one thing I want to talk a little bit about, maybe it's the obvious, but it is the idea that the writer is known to observe a lot, right? So are you that kind of writer who is known to kind of look around, notice the small things? I think all artists are so good at this, especially painters, especially people who are into the creative arts. Somehow they notice them small things, right? Even chefs, right? Isn't that a kind of art as well? And that is one thing that we as writers also do. So now, this might seem completely unrelated, but I promise it is very related. And that is the idea that when we see the world around us and how we see the world around us will have an impact on how we write. And the reason why I say that is because as writers, we, as I said, are known to observe, right? But one of the hardest things to observe as humans and as writers and as people who are inshallah practicing the deen is to observe ourselves, and how we see ourselves is gonna impact how we see the world around us. I hope I'm not adding so many layers, but the idea is the way we perceive ourselves and how we treat ourselves is gonna impact how we see the world around us. That's the basic point, right? And the reason why that is so important is because sometimes we can get into this mode of thinking very negatively about ourselves. It could be for many reasons. It could be because of the way people have treated us. It could be because of our own perfectionist tendencies, which we had to, create or do in our lives because of the way we were raised. Maybe there's so many reasons why we could see ourselves negatively. But the most important point to realize is if we see ourselves negatively and if we have this voice in our head that we allow to keep drowning us in criticism and negativity, then that is how we are going to see the world around us, right? It's like a lens. It's like a lens where we put on our eyes, and that is, if it is beautiful, then we will see the world in a beautiful way. But the best way is that it's a clear lens, right? It's a clear lens. Now, all of this has to do with character, because there is this idea where if we are kinder to ourselves, if we pay more attention to how we speak to ourselves, if we are less harsh and we catch that negative voice before it becomes something that is overwhelming, then we will begin to see the world around us in that similar way. So this is important, because when we see ourselves for how we really are, who we really are, without the extremities of that harsh negative voice, without the extremities of telling ourselves off for certain things, being very, very, hard on ourselves, then we will also see the world in that way as well. So that is important when writing characters, because the characters that we write will be, if we want them to be real, then we have to be real as human beings, because that is how we are going to see people around the world, as real human beings as well. And that is when we are able to see deeper than the stereotypes of whatever society or whatever our own upbringing has created for us to see, or any of the negative thoughts and all of that, which has impacted how we see people. So we see them in a very real light, and we approach them, inshallah, with the same voice that we approach ourselves, and that hopefully will be a kind voice, a compassionate voice. So the point of this is to be more mindful of how we speak to ourselves, is to be more mindful of how we see ourselves, and take the good as well as the bad, and put everything in its proper place. And because once we do that, that is the definition of wisdom. Once we are able to do that, we are able to put everything else, how we see the world, the way we do things, the way we write things, everything will be in its proper place. And when that happens, then you write amazingly. And in the case of characters, when we are able to see people for who they really are, because we are being true to ourselves, we're being authentic, we are not being overly positive in a way where, you know, it's almost toxic, or we're not being overly negative towards ourselves where it is being toxic. There is a balance of both, because you see things for how they really are. And I pray that Allah helps us to see things how they really are. Ameen. And then we can appreciate people and approach them with this way of thinking, which is objective. And objectivity is always on the side of truth. We can approach them with objectivity. We can see the good and we can see the bad, but not in a way which is exaggerated and negative, because of our own biases, right? So when we begin to approach people with this mindset, with this lens, with this way of thinking, then we begin to see them for who they really are as well. And that is how we are going to write the best characters in the world, because we will truly understand people for who they are and what they are, and not what we have been taught to see them as, or not how we see ourselves. So I really hope that this tip helped you. And the tip is, I should probably be a bit more clear about what the tip is. I apologize. The tip is to be kinder to ourselves, and to be really mindful of how we speak to ourselves, and not be so harsh, and to be gentle. And once we are like that, we will be like that with the world as well. And to be gentle but also balanced, right? So not totally rose-colored glasses, but with more of a tint of compassion. And that is how, inshallah, we will paint the world. And that is where the truly beautiful stories come from, when they come from a heart of compassion. And I really hope you enjoyed this show. I hope you enjoyed this episode, and let me know if this tip works for you. Let me know if you have any tips on how to write some amazing characters. I would love to hear from you. Inshallah, we would love to hear from you. And before we finish, please put your hand on your heart, and I will do the same. And say with me, Bismillah ar-Rahman ar-Rahim, my voice has power. My voice has power. Okay, Assalamu alaikum wa rahmatullahi wa barakatuh, everyone.